So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's session. We will be talking about how to solve guesstimates and puzzles in a job interview. So, before starting, my name is Madhur Singh, and I want a quick confirmation if I'm clearly audible and visible to all of you. Please write in the chat box if I'm clearly audible and visible to all of you. A quick confirmation whether I'm clearly audible and visible to all of you. Yes, Jagdish is saying yes. Thank you. All right. So, in this session, we'll be talking about how to solve guesstimates and puzzles in a job interview. Now, we know that these days, most of the companies, they don't look for hard skills, but they also look for soft skills like solving something that requires critical thinking, that requires problem solving ability. So, therefore, we have this session in which we'll be talking about two of the most important aspects that keep getting asked in interviews, that is guesstimates as well as puzzles. So before starting, let me tell you the agenda of this particular session. So we'll start by knowing what is a puzzle, what is a guesstimate. We'll have a brief introduction about what are these and why it is so important, right? Why are these companies so heavily asking these questions repeatedly again and again, right? We all know that you are freshers, you are just right out of the college, or you are in college right now, and you would want to land your dream job, right? Everyone wants a dream job. So in order to do that, you need to know certain skills, how to solve these particular things like puzzles and guesstimates. So we'll solve this together. We'll have a systematic, organized way of solving these problems. Now, with my experience, I know that puzzles and guesstimates can be a little challenging task for most of us. So we'll practice these questions together. We'll know what are the concepts behind it and also know about the certain tips and tricks that are used in solving puzzles as well as guesstimates. And definitely we'll have some bonus tips for you guys how you can upskill yourself regarding puzzles and guesstimates if you want to crack your placement test, your job interviews, and land your dream job. So, without any further ado, let's start with what are puzzles. Now, puzzles are critical thinking problems. Much like the brain teasers, they are required by the interview to rely on the lateral thinking and problem solving skills. What does this mean? This means that puzzles are heavily dependent on how well you can think at the given situations. Now we are talking about job interviews, right? When someone is sitting right next to you, the interviewer is sitting right next to you. Now at that very moment, it becomes very difficult to, get time for yourself to get more and more time in solving these puzzles. You have a very limited time, which means that you need to get to the final conclusion in that particular time. So how do you start with that, right? Puzzles have a very interesting things. If you have the first thought about that puzzle, right, how to solve it, then you'll do it in one go. But if you keep thinking about in a different way, in a different manner in which it cannot be solved, then it takes a lot of time for you to brainstorm on that particular problem. So we'll know how puzzles are solved, what are the ways in which you can solve puzzles, what are the different techniques that are required in solving puzzles. We'll know all about that. The second thing, this is the first element we talked about puzzle. The second element that we'll be learning here is called guesstimate. Now, guesstimates are also very heavily asked in MBA interview questions. When you sit for placements in the MBA colleges, guesstimates are the number one priority of all the tech companies that come up, all the consulting companies that come up. Guesstimates is a must because why do we need guesstimates? Because guesstimates does not contain, so let me define what it is. Guesstimate interview questions involve asking candidates to guess and estimate, right? The name itself suggests guesstimate, which means that you have to guess and estimate a number based on a limited context and information. For example, the interviewer may ask you how many blue cars are there in Delhi. Okay, so to solve this particular problem, you need to have the context of knowing because there is no number involved in it. Now, in order to solve this particular problem, you need to make sure that you have enough knowledge, enough skill set to know what the final conclusion or the answer would be. Now, guesstimate require interviews to combine logical thinking, journal and background knowledge, mental math, and problem solving skills. Since everything is based on assumption, right? Assuming certain numbers, so that assumption would require further in solving that problem, it would require further steps. That further steps would require you playing around with numbers. That's why mental math, problem solving skills are important. Now, a point to be noted here is that any guesstimates would does not have a correct answer. Okay, I'm reiterating this thing that a guesstimate does not have any correct answer. Since it is a guesstimate, you can have different answers, but what the interviewer will look when you are solving this guesstimate is that he will look around is the approach that you are taking. What is the approach? What are the steps? What is the organized flow of structural thinking you might be having? Because guesstimates is all about the approach that you are following. Since the interviewer will be sitting right next to you when you are solving that guesstimates, he'll have a lot of interactions with you. He'll ask you why you have done this, why you have chosen this step, why not something else. So you need to be confident enough to solve that particular problem, or at least the approach should be correct. Okay, if you're confident enough about the approach, then the final answer does not matter, because what the interviewer will be looking at is whether the steps that are involved are correct or not. Okay, I talked about a general thing. How many blue cars are there in Delhi, right? This is a no one knows the answer of it. I don't know the answer. You don't know the answer. Even the interviewer who is asking this question would not know the answer, because it's a very, it does not have a correct answer to it. Similarly, in a guesstimate, more than the actual answer you arrive, right? I just talked about it. More than the actual answer, an interviewer is more interested in the approach to take to arrive at that answer, right? The end answer would be wrong, does not matter, but the approach should be correct. Okay, so this was all about guesstimate in knowing what guesstimates are. Now, since you will be asked these guesstimates in your placement interviews, you need to know what is the thought process that the companies have when they are asking this particular thing, right? You should know why you are doing this, because you would have an extra motivation to learn these things, right? Because if you don't know why you are doing, why you are preparing for puzzles and guesstimates, then it would not make sense. You would want to know what is the thought process of the interviewer who is asking this particular thing, puzzles and guesstimates, because at the end of it, you want to be hired in that particular company. You want to land your dream job. So in order to do that, you would have to know what is the thought process of these companies when they come up with this particular puzzles and guesstimates. And also, if you have any queries in between, you can please put it in the chat box, because it would be really good to make this session a very interactive one, because guesstimates and puzzles are very small topic and we have dedicated 1 hour for it. So we will make this session more and more interactive. You have any doubts, any queries in at any step of the puzzle or guesstimate that I solve, you can please ping it in the chat box, because we would know that you are doing these problems with us, because you learn more and more about it when you are doing it together with me. So without any further ado, let's move on to why puzzles and guesstimates. Now, puzzles and guesstimates have emerged as a really powerful tool to know what type of candidate they are picking. Now, what are the 4 parameters that are required in this particular thing that the company look at? First is the structural way of thinking, the structural way of problem solving, which means you need to have out of box thinking. Out of box thinking, why it is required? So most of the consulting firms, most of the tech companies, when they hire candidates, they have to work on certain projects. Now these projects would have a problem statement, they would have a particular problem that they are trying to resolve. Now in order to resolve those particular things, in order to resolve that particular problem, you need to have the solving capability, you need to have that problem solving mindset to do it, right? Then comes logical reasoning. Why is it important to have logical reasoning? Because again, the projects would require you to go outside the box and think something. Then numerical capabilities, a lot of things in the tech world and in the consulting world revolve around the numerical capabilities. Then communication skills. Now, let's say that you would never be working alone in a team, right? In a company, you would have a lot of people together. Now, if there is any problem existing, you don't want to enhance that problem or complicate that problem with the communication gap, with the communication lag. So communication is also a must when it comes to solving puzzles and guesstimates. So since the interviewer will be sitting right next to you, he'll know how confident you are in asking them if there is any queries, and also that when you are sitting right next to him, he would know that what is your structural way of thinking and how clearly you are telling him what you think. So that's why communication skill is a must. Now, okay, most of the people lack communication skills, right? So in order to do that, we at Great Learning have this wonderful courses in Great Learning Academy, where you can go enroll yourself for completely free, and you can know about communication skills. Not even communication skills, upskilling is a must these days, right? So if you go to Great Learning Academy and you can register yourself, there are hundreds and hundreds of courses, be it data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. If you are from a non-coding background, if you want to start learning about programming, you can do that as well for absolutely free. And on the top of that, you would also get a certificate in learning a new skill. So we here at Great Learning deeply, deeply care about all the fresh graduates that are coming up to land their dream job. Okay, so you can upskill yourself at Great Learning Academy. Even my team would be giving you the link of Great Learning Academy in the chat box. You can look at that as well. So moving ahead, what would be the tips from my side to solve these particular problems? What would be the tips that you would want to know when it comes to solving puzzles, right? So the first is, the step number one is to think about that problem. When the question comes in front of you, you do not have to read it half. You do not have to, just in a hurry keep coming up about what would be the solution. First, take your time, read that question properly, read that problem statement properly, what it is saying, what is telling, what it is asked. Sometimes what happens in puzzles is that the answer is hidden in the problem itself, and you will be using some different terms to find that solution, but sometimes it happens that it is in the question itself. So number one step is to think about that problem. Number two is ask for clarification. Okay, so the puzzle comes in front of you. If you have doubt in any part of that problem statement, you can ask the interviewer, hey, finding this particular statement a little difficult, what does it mean? You can genuinely ask that, because this is a one-to-one face-on-face conversation that you are having. You can ask that. You can ask for you can ask for clarification on any part of that problem statement. then comes then comes use what you know, right? What you know, if in the problem statement what you have, first write it down, what it is already given to you, right? Then go ahead in solving that problem. Then explain your reasoning. Now, why I mentioned this particular point, explain your reasoning. The point here is that there may be a situation, no one can be 100% confident in solving puzzles. Okay, you because you have to practice a lot and lot and lot, and there is no limit to solving puzzles. So if you are explaining your reasoning more confidently to the interviewer, then the solution that comes at the end has a less weightage. Now, that is the reason why, if you're solving any problem, you should be 100% confident that, okay, this is the approach that I'm taking and I'll stick to that approach, because I feel that this is the solution, this is how the solution will be at the end come up. So this is why it is important to explain your reasoning, continuously explain your reasoning to the interviewer. The final point that comes out is provide a solution. Now, it is very important to provide a solution to what you are doing. See, the point is that solution in puzzles is fixed. Guesstimates does not have any answer, but solution to a puzzle is fixed. So guesstimates can have different assumptions, different approach in solving the problem, but in puzzles, the solution will be one. Okay, the point to be noted here is that answering these types of interview questions correctly may not be as important as solving the problem. That's why number 4 point I explain your reasoning. If your reasoning is more confident, is your approach is more confident, then there is a less weightage to the solution that comes up at the end. And more and more, I've seen people who have who have passed that interview rounds even when their puzzles was wrong. The reason was that their approach and the confidence was so much that it did not matter at the end if the answer was wrong. That's why the weightage is less to the solution and more to the approach that you're taking, and also the confidence that you have in this particular session. Okay, someone has written that voice is not clear. Could you please type in the chat box if I'm audible and visible again? A quick confirmation. Am I clearly audible and visible to you all? Okay. Thank you for confirming. Yes, it is audible. So we'll move on to what are the tips to solve guesstimates. Now, guesstimates play a very important role, as I already mentioned, that it plays a very, very important role when it comes to MBA preparation as well as final year consulting problems, right? Interviewer asks in your personal round. So let me give you a brief on how the placement process works. So you have first a screening test that you need to clear, then you have either personal interview rounds, group interviews, or even group discussions, or even you have the technical rounds. So in any of these, you can be asked these guesstimates, mostly in personal interview rounds or at the start of technical interview rounds, guesstimates and puzzles are asked, right? So you need to make sure that this is appropriate to your understanding. Now, when it comes to the first part of it, that is screening test, for that also we have a course called a logical reasoning for placements that is created by me itself. So you can go in the Great Learning Academy, you can enroll in that course and learn about clearing those placement tests, the screening tests that the companies take. Okay, coming back to the guesstimates, tip to solve guesstimates. Number one is make educated guesses. Yes, that is correct. You have to make educated guesses. You cannot blindly tell an answer to a guesstimate that is out of the box or that is out of the picture. You have to make an educated guess. You have to make sure that whatever you are talking about is at least relatable to what you have. Always sense check your final answer. So whatever answer you arrive at doesn't matter if it is wrong or right, but it matters of how much it is deviated from the actual answer. For example, I just took an example of how many blue cars are there in Delhi. Now, to answer that particular question, to answer that particular guesstimate, if I come to come to a conclusion at the end that 1.3 billion cars are there in Delhi that are blue, which is illogical because there are not even that many people living in Delhi that would have, and even the car that of blue color, not all people like blue, right? So you can have different approaches to it. The confidence should be there in the approach, but you should not deviate to the level in which it is illogical for anyone to understand, right? So thinking out loud is the third point. Now, what does this mean? So again, the interviewer will be sitting in front of you and you will be right next to him. And if you want to know that what he's trying to say, what he's trying to analyze in you, it is the approach that you're taking. So thinking out loud is again very important aspect to it. Don't just do the calculations in mind and mumble the answer. You have to be very clear about what you are doing. You have to be very outspoken in front of the interviewer. You have to be loud. You need to tell him, okay, this is the approach I'm taking, and we'll know about that when once we come to the example. At the end we'll come to an example, we'll know that how it is done. But it is very important to consider these, make educated guesses, always final check the answer, sense check that if it is even relatable to what you are talking about, then is thinking out loud or being confident in the approach. Note, always remember that you don't necessarily have to reach to an accurate answer. Now I'm heavily stressing on this, right? Always remember that you don't necessarily have to reach to an accurate answer, because it really does not matter. It matters what the approach is. It matters how well structured your thinking is. That is what will drive the interviewer in hiring you as a potential candidate to the employee of the company. So what essentially, again I'll repeat, is that it is always necessary to reach, it is not always necessary to reach at the final answer, but the approach should be solid. Okay, let's start with the examples. Without any further ado, let's start with the examples. So you can have your notepads ready. You can take a pen and pencil and you can sit and we'll do it together. All right. Yes, Rafiq Mohammed, you can ask me any questions and I'll be more than happy to answer to your questions. Any questions that you have, you can put it in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to take them. Any queries till now, guys? All right. So we'll start with what is the first question, the first example, the first question that we'll talk about is, let's read the question together. So you are in a room that has three switches and a closed door. Okay. You are in a room that has three switches and a closed door. The switches control three light bulbs on the other side of the road of the door. Once you open the door, you may never touch the switches again. How can you definitely tell which switch is connected to which light bulb? Okay, I'll read the question again. You are in a room that has three switches and a closed door. Okay, the switches control three light bulbs on the other side of the door. Once you open the door, you may never touch the switches again. Okay, how can you definitely tell which switch is connected to what light bulb? Now, when I have this particular question in front of me, what should be my approach? Again, I told you, right? The first thought of process should be to analyze the question properly. Okay, you don't have much time in front of the interviewer. He doesn't have 2 hours to sit for one problem. So we'll quickly read the question in a more structural manner. You are in a room that has three switches and a closed door. So there is a room that has three switches and a closed door. These switches control three light bulbs. So basically there are three light bulbs inside a room and there are three switches of these three light bulbs that are outside the room, right? And the door is closed. Once you open the door, so once you open the door, you can never touch the switches, okay? You can never touch the switches that are outside. You can only either open the door or close the door and switch on or switch off the switches. Then how can you definitely tell which switch is connected to what light bulb? Right? What is the process in which you would find that? So what is the approach that you would follow? So there are three light bulbs, three switches outside, a closed door. How will you switch on, switch on? Let's see. So the approach would be to turn on the first two switches. Okay, so when the door is closed, we turn on the first two switches, right? There are three switches, one, two, and three. Three switches. So the first two one, switch them on. After 10 minutes, what would you do? After 10 minutes, you would switch off the second switch. Okay. After 10 minutes, you would switch off the second switch and the switch number one is on. Okay. Then you would go open the door. Now you remember switch number one is on, switch number two is off after 10 minutes and switch number three was untouched. So it is off. So when you open the door and you see, so what would you see that out of the three light bulbs, the bulb number one would be on because it was on. The bulb number two was off and three was off. But how would you know which switch is what, right? So for the first switch, the light bulb would be on. For the second switch, the light bulb would be off. And for the third switch also, the bulb would be off. But what is the significant factor? When you go and touch that two bulbs, the one that is not illuminated, that is the second and the third one, if you touch the one that is warm would be your switch number two because that is the switch you turned on and off after 10 minutes. So in those 10 minutes that bulb would have been heated, right? It has heating properties, so the bulb would have been heated. So this way, and since the third bulb and the third switch were not switched on, so you would not, that would be cold. So then you don't have to do anything, you have to touch. If it is cold, then it is switch number three is of bulb number three. So this is how you would know. It is a very, very simple way, in a very structured way. You have to think, you have to break down that particular puzzles into three different sections. Number one, you have to imagine the situation, you have to construct what is happening in, you can take even during the interview process, you would have pen and paper, so you can draw a particular room, three switches, three bulbs. You can use hit and try. You can know that if you are not comfortable in this particular approach, you can hit and try and do that. But that then the time would be more, right? Then the time utilized by you in using hit and try and doing it would be more. But this way, if you have already gathered your thoughts, then it would be really easy for you to solve these particular problems. Turn on first two switch, leave the first switch on again, turn the first two switches on, wait for 10 minutes, switch off the second switch that you switched on. So now switch 1 is on, switch 2 is off, switch 3 was always off. So when you go inside the room, switch 1 would be illuminated, switch 2 would be bulb 2 would be off. If you go and touch that bulb, the bulb would be warm but switched off, so you would know, okay, this was the switch that I turned on for 10 minutes. This is how you answer these problems. Now we'll take one more problem. If you have any queries, please put it in the chat box with the example. If you have any problems in any queries in any of the problems that I'm solving, please put them in the chat box. All right, no queries then. So example number two. So your parents have six sons, including you, and each son has one sister. How many people are in their nuclear family? Now I'll again reiterate this question. I'll again just read that question once again when you are in front of the interviewer. Your parents have six sons, including you, and each son has one sister. How many people are there in that nuclear family? Very easy question. Your parents, mother, father, you have six sons, they have six sons, so six sons, in which one of them are you? So six sons, and each one of them has one sister, right? Now, how many people are there in a nuclear family? Very easy question. Let's see. So 9 is the answer to it, right? 9 is the answer. How? Two parents, mother and father. Okay, they have six sons. So 6 is the number of sons. Then each one of them has one daughter. Since all the six sons would be brothers to each other, they would have the common sister, right? So they have the total number would be six sons, one sister and one daughter, and two parents. So the total number would be 9. Yes, Miss Archana, you are right. The answer is 9. Well done. If anyone has any other queries in this particular problem, you can type it in the chat box. All right, the next problem number 3 that we will be talking about, let's see. There are six glasses in a line. Okay, there are six glasses in a line. Only the first three are fully filled with juice. The last three are completely empty. So how can you move only one glass in order to rearrange the glasses in such a way that each full glass is followed by an empty one? Okay. So, you know the step number one to reread this particular problem. There are six glasses in a line. Only the first three are fully filled with juice. The last three are completely empty. How can you move one glass in order to arrange the glasses in a way that each full glass is followed by an empty one, right? If you have pen and paper, make those six glasses. Imagine or fill the first three glasses fully. Now see how you can, you know, the last three, how you can arrange in a way that there is a full glass followed by an empty one. Okay. If anyone knows the answer to this problem, please put it in the chat box. Let's see how many you have learned this concept of puzzles. All right. So I'll go ahead with the solution. So this is the thing. This is the thing that you need to make, right? You have to get pen and paper. You have to make exactly the same. Like you can have three glasses. You have to imagine this thing, right? You have to imagine. You can put it on pen and paper and know. Now, if you see that the second glass, right? The second glass, if you pour that second glass completely into the fifth glass, right? The problem is solved. Take the second glass and pour the juice from it to the fifth glass, right? So now you have the arrangement that is possible. Very simple one-step solution, nothing too complicated in this. So these are the things exactly. Second empty glass for thrice. Okay. Yes, Miss Archana. One full glass, second empty glass, third, and follow the same. Exactly. Cool. Very well done. So this is how you solve the puzzles. This is generally what is asked in the placement interviews. Okay, they don't ask too complicated ones. They ask simple ones. But the point is that you should be quick in your thinking and the approach, right? If you take too many attempts with the wrong approach, then that's also a red flag for them. Okay, so make sure you have your structured way of thinking. Right, right. Avinash, yes, yes, you are correct as well. Empty the second glass into the fifth glass. Excellent work. Nice. Okay, so this is the way in which you solve puzzles, right? Now let's talk about guesstimates. Okay, guesstimates can be a bit lengthy. Okay, I'm telling you in advance, it can be a bit lengthy. And if you don't follow the structural way of thinking, the structural step-by-step way of thinking, then you will get confused in the middle. Why I'm talking about this? Let's take an example and look what are the different things that a guesstimate has. So we'll solve the problem of estimate the number of washing machines in India. Okay, this is the problem statement that we will be talking about, that we will be solving. Estimate the number of washing machines in India. Till now, everything is clear to everyone. All right. So how would you start? How would you go ahead with this particular problem? Now, if you have to estimate the number of washing machines in India, there are always two ways in which you can solve this problem. One is a more complicated one, that is the demand side or the supply side. In this particular scenario, let me talk about what is the demand side and what is the supply side. So for a washing machine, there will be a manufacturer and there will be a customer who would buy it. Now, the demand side would be the customers that are taking that thing, and the supply side would be the companies that would be selling this particular uh, washing machines. Now, if you have too many, we as humans don't know how many machine manufacturers are there in the market, right? So we cannot come to a conclusion about what are the number of washing machines in India. It will get too complicated. But when we talk about the demand side, the customers that would be purchasing these particular washing machines, then that can be easy. Okay. So how will we go ahead with solving it from the demand side? Let's take this example. So we will first assume a lot of things in this. We'll assume the total population of India as 120 crores. Okay, you can take 125 crores. The end answer would change accordingly. Okay, no one knows what is the till the exact decimal point. No one knows what is the population of India. So we'll take a rough estimate of 120 crores is the total population of India. Okay, so what is the next step? And this you have to do in front of the interviewer. Okay, so think in that perspective that you are sitting in front of the interviewer and you have to solve this. So the first step that you do is find the total number of population, that is 120 crores, right? So that you have to write it on the piece of paper that the total population is 120 crores. Then you have to think in a way that not every person in India would want to buy washing machine, right? Individually, they don't want to buy washing machines. In a household, in a family, they would own one washing machine, right? That would be the maximum they would own. Washing machine is not a smartphone that people want to carry two smartphones, right? Washing machine is something that one family has one washing machine, right? This is the assumption we are making, that one household has one washing machine, and also each household at an average has four individuals. So this is the assumptions. You have to ask the interviewer about it, that can I assume this? He'll most probably say yes. If not, then he'll give you a number. Okay. But you have to constantly ask that this is the particular thing, that assumption you are making. Okay. So 120 crores divided by 4 would give you 30 crores. 4 why? Again, we are considering that each household has 4 members. So if you divide the total population of India by 4, you get 30 crore. Now these are the number of households that India has. Okay, so households are 30 crores. Now the second assumption, the second step of solving this is going by the cities. Okay, tier 1 cities, tier 2 and tier 3 cities and villages. Okay. Now, what are we assuming in this? That how many households are there in villages? That is 65% households that we are assuming that majority of the population is in villages, right? Majority of the Indian population stay in middle in villages, that is tier 4 and tier 5 cities. Okay. Then we talk about a reasonable amount of households they stay in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay. The cities that are less populated. Then we'll assume that 20% of the households they stay in tier 1 cities. Now, why we have assumed this? This is to again make sure that we are evenly distributed, because villages, tier 2, tier 3 cities and tier 1 cities would have different, percentage of people who would own a washing machine. Again, not everyone in this country would have a washing machine. Not every household in the country would have washing machine, right? So we would assume a certain amount, certain percentage. So you always go by percentages in this scenario, okay? So 20% we have assumed that 20% of the people stay in tier 1 cities, 15% of the people they stay in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, while the remaining 65% of the people of the household they stay in villages. Now again, you don't want to make you have to make educated guesses. You cannot go out of the way. If you have chosen this 65 plus 15 plus 20 should add up to 100. If it is not adding up to 100, then again this you would be it would be a red flag for the interviewer, because you're not good in percentages. So make sure that every assumption you're making, everything that you're distributing in percentage, they add up to 100. Okay. So 20% of the 30 crore household will give us 6 crore. 15% of those 30 crore population would give us 4.5 crore, and 65% of those 30 would give us again 20 crore. Okay. So this is the assumptions that we have made, and we'll go ahead with these assumptions. Now, tier 1 city, right? 6 crore household we have marked down that 6 crore household live in tier 1 cities. Now, those cities also have a division between poor, middle class, and rich people, right? Now, we have to differentiate between that. Again, you have to assume these things. That 20% we assuming you can take 15%, you can take 65%, you can take 20% of rich. Doesn't matter what percentage you are taking, but it should be again educated guess. You cannot put 100% of people rich in tier 1 cities, because that is never going to happen. So again, make educated guesses in this scenario. So we'll consider that 20% of the people are rich, 60% of the people are in the middle class, they come under the middle class category, and also 20% of the people comes under the poor category. Now, similarly in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, 4.5 crore household we calculated here, 4.5 crore household. So that 4.5 crore household, we would estimate that in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, that the number of people that are poor is more. Again, this is an assumption that we are making, that we have 40% of poor, 50% of the middle class, and 10% are rich. Okay. Tier 2 and tier 3 cities, this is the scenario. Again, you can change the percentages accordingly, but again, make reasonable guesses. Don't make the poor as 60% in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because that is not how it works. That is not how it going to happen. Then comes the villages. Villages have the maximum number of household. We calculated that 20 crore of the people are in they live in villages. Okay. So 20 crore households would have, yeah, so the villages would dominate most of the poor people. So 60% of the people we will consider as comes under the poor category. Then you can make it, let's say 35% and make 5% this. That is also okay. But we have considered here as middle class population to be as 38%, and rich as 2%. Now, till now, if anyone has any queries, please put them in the chat box. I'll be more than happy to clarify it to you, more than happy to repeat. If anyone wants me to repeat, I'll do that as well. So we were talking about the assumptions, right? Assumptions. So number one is that no poor class household have washing machine. Okay. So we don't consider that the poor households would own any washing machine. So no poor households would have washing machines in village or cities or tier 1, any tier 1, tier 2 or tier 3 cities. Then all the rich class households would have washing machines, yes, in villages or in cities. So this particular population, 20%, 10%, and 2% would 100% have washing machines. Then we'll consider among the middle class population, that is 60% in tier 1, 50% in tier 2 and tier 3, 38% in villages. So these, the total amount would consider the total middle class would have 50% of them would have washing machine. This is an assumption. You can take it 60% as well. You can take it 65% as well. That is up to you. But don't make it like 80% because that is not reasonable at all. Not 80%, no 80% population that is middle class would have washing machines. Let's be reasonable in this scenario. We'll consider 50 or 60, your choice. You can take any of the choices, but for our demonstration, we have considered 50%. So 50% of the middle class households have washing machines in tier 1 cities, 40% in tier 2 cities, and but no, yeah, okay. So when we talk about villages, again, the poor and the middle class would not own washing machines. If they want, also you can put it as 2%, but that is too minimum with the population of 1.3 billion people in India. So you can neglect that population as well because that would be the amount would be averaged out in other scenarios. So 50% of the middle class households have washing machines in tier 1, 40% in tier 2 and tier 3, and no middle class household have washing machines in the villages. Okay, so all the assumptions that we have made so far are complete. All the assumptions that we have to take are complete. Now we'll calculate the number at the end. So tier 1 cities. So tier 1 cities, the poor household. Okay, we'll consider this as a as the solving pattern. The numbers we'll put it in this particular three steps. Okay, so in tier 1 cities, 0% of the households who are poor would have washing machines. So we wrote 0. Then again, we discussed in point number 3 of assumptions that 50% of the middle class household, that is 50% of the 60% of 6 crores. Okay, first we'll do 60% of 6 crores. Okay, 60% of 6 crores, the number. Among that number, only 50% would have washing machines. So 50% of 60% of 6%. Okay, you can calculate it as well. 60%, so 0.60 into 6 would give you this number. Then apart from on that number, 50% would own it. Okay, plus rich. We assumed all the rich in tier 1 city to have washing machines. So 100% of the population would have washing machines. Of what? So 6 crores household, only 20% of are rich. So 20 by 100 into 6 would give you how many rich people in absolute numbers are there in tier 1 cities. Out of that, everyone owns washing machines. So 100% of them own washing machines. So if you sum up all the three things here, 0 plus this number plus the third number, you would arrive at 3 crores. So what is this 0? This is poor class, this is middle class, this is rich class. So all three have a particular rating to it. Then comes tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Now in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, again we assume that none of the poor have washing machine. So we'll consider this number as 0. Then we'll consider that 40%, right? We consider this here. 40% in tier 2 and tier 3 cities own washing machine. Okay. So in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we have considered 50% to be of middle class. Okay. So 50% of 4.5 crore will give us the absolute number in crores. How much is that population? Then out of that population, 40% would own washing machines. Okay. So this particular second part will give you the middle class one. Then the third comes the third part. So in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we have rich people that are there in tier 2 city, in tier 2 and tier 3 city, 10%. So 10% of 4.5 crores will give me the exact number, that is around 45 lakhs. That that number would be of that 45 lakhs, 100% would own washing machines. Okay. So again, if you sum up the poor class, the middle class, and the rich class, you will come up to the number called 1.35 crores. And at the end come villages. We assume that none of the poor people in the villages have washing machines. None of the middle class people in the in the villages have washing machines. So we are left with rich that are 2%. So 2% of 20 crore will give us the exact number of how many households, that is around 40 lakhs. And out of 40 lakhs, all people would have washing machines. Okay. So this is our assumptions that we are making, that zero point 0.4, sorry, zero point 0.4 crore is the assumption, the number that we get, that the villages have 0.4 crore people in the villages would have washing machine. So summing all the tier 1 city, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities and the villages, we arrive at an answer called 4.7 crore. Okay. Now, when we are assuming this number 4.7 crore, we have to be very realistic in telling the interviewer that okay, 4.7 crore people would own the washing machine in India. Now you don't have to be get into too much detail while solving this. You don't have to consider, okay, what if rich have two washing machines? What if the some of the middle class have two washing machines? No, you don't have to consider any of that scenario. You just have to consider these three scenarios. Now, there can be other factors also that you are neglecting. What are those factors? For example, there are certain laundry centers, certain washing clothes centers, right? They would also own a lot of washing machines, but we have not considered that as well, because we are generalizing a thing. Because if you get too much in detail, then you will make your structural thinking more complicated. Okay, so make sure that your approach to solving a problem is clear, is crystal clear, right? So in this particular problem, what we did, again, I'll recap. We took India's population, we divided the number of household, we took an average of four people in a particular household, we divided that with the total population, we got a number of household that is 30 crores. Then we segregated these into tier 1 cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities and villages, because we know that okay, tier 1 cities, the middle class would be more, more up to buy washing machines. The rich in all three classes would have, all three cities would have, three criterias would have washing machines. So then what we did, we further divided the tier 1 cities into the income structure, the poor structure, the poor income, the middle income, the rich income. We did the same with tier 2 and tier 3 city. We did the same with villages, right? So after solving all these things, we considered all the assumptions that no poor household would have washing machines, that all the rich class would own the washing machines, then 50% of the middle class households would have washing machines in tier 1 cities, 40% in tier 2, tier 3 cities, and no middle class in the villages. So all these assumptions are made. Now, what is the thing that you need to do? So while you are assuming all this, while you are taking all these assumptions, you have to talk to the interviewer. You have to tell them while you're solving this, okay, I'm taking this as an assumption, I'm taking this as an assumption. You need to be vocal about it. You need to tell him exactly what you are thinking, because this is what will drive that interviewer's mindset. Again, your purpose is not to get the correct answer at the end. Your purpose is you, to make sure that the interviewer thinks that yes, you are the suitable candidate. Yes, you have the problem solving skills that are required for this job. Yes, you have the critical reasoning skills. So all this in the structural way you have to think, right? You have to think, you have to make sure that you are ready for it. Okay. So one more another thing, that we are taking this live sessions every day now to make sure that during this placement season, during this placement times, you are not left out. So we are making sure at our end that we give you this quality content in which we talk about these let's say puzzles, guesstimates. We talk about how to build your resume, right? Today in the morning also we had a session on resume building. You can check that out on Great Learning Academy. You can check that out on YouTube as well. So you know that we are coming up with these problems. So make sure that you enroll yourself, you register yourself in such courses, such live sessions, and you can even interact with us, right? You can have any queries that you have, you can put that in the chat box. We'll be more than happy to assist you in that front, right? So we have two sessions on what are the new skills that are coming up. We have that session tomorrow. So we make sure that at 12, we have sessions at 12 p.m. and 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. So make sure that you stay tuned with us. You enroll yourself in these live sessions, because at the end you will gain knowledge and you will exceed, right? What do you want? What is your purpose, right? Your purpose is to be ahead of your competition. And if you enroll with us, you definitely will be ahead of the competition that is out there, because we know a lot of recruiters, we know how they think, we know their approach in solving in giving the problem statement, what is the backend process that happens in their brain, that what type of candidate is suitable, right? So we'll train you in all aspects. You have to stay tuned with us in the sessions that we provide every single day. For a week, we have these sessions. So make sure that you enroll yourself in these sessions on the Great Learning Academy. And the second point is that, okay, so some of us are weak in communication skills, right? So in order to reduce that, we have courses that would help you learn that aspect. You don't want anything to be lagging when you are in front of an interviewer, right? So make sure we have free courses, we give free education on Great Learning Academy. Make sure that you enroll yourself in Great Learning Academy. The link of that same is has been shared in the chat box as well. Click on that, enroll yourself, take any of the free courses. We have hundreds and thousands of courses on Great Learning Academy, on data science, on artificial intelligence, Python, machine learning, digital marketing, courses on finance, on interview preparation, even on the screening test that happen, right? You can go and check out the course on logical reasonings for placement. You can enroll in that course to know, okay, what are the types of things that are asked in the placement papers, right? Most of us also look in the placement out. They also go ahead and look for jobs outside the college placements. They go and check them out as well. So you need to make sure that you are ready. You need to make sure that you know how to build up a proper resume. You need to make sure that everything that have been done at your end is crystal clear. So this is what is important when it comes to, preparing for placements, right? So make sure you are available. Thank you everyone for attending this particular session. Make sure that you are available. Make sure to enroll in those courses, and we'll be more than happy to answer to all your queries if you have, and to gain more and more knowledge from these courses. Okay, good evening. I hope you all stay safe at your homes.